Hello to everyone on the line, and thanks for joining us today. Welcome to today's webinar, 21st Century Solutions to Higher Education's Top Recruitment Challenges. As most of you are aware, schools are continually searching for meaningful ways to engage with prospective students at each point within the recruitment process. And for reasons that we're going to explore during this session, student engagement and finding the right fit has become much more challenging for many schools, particularly when employing more traditional recruitment methods. This session today will identify some of those more notable recruiting challenges and also provide good practical advice for how schools can overcome those challenges. So today's program is going to consist of two parts. Part one, we are going to review those top 5 recruiting challenges and explain what those notable barriers are. And then for each challenge, we're going to review strategies and tactics to help overcome those challenges. And finally, we're going to give you an example, a case study for how schools are putting those recruiting strategies into action for each challenge. Part 2 of today's presentation will feature an in-depth example of a 21st century recruiting challenge in action, and you'll learn how the University of Louisville is recruiting students using social media and online technologies to augment their traditional recruiting strategies. Just a little bit of housekeeping for the presentation. Feel free to ask questions during the presentation, but we will actually handle all questions at the end of the presentation. And after the presentation is over, we'll be sending slides as well as a link to the on-demand session. So for today's presentation, I'm Erin Warren. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at College Week Live. I've been here for almost 3 years. Formerly, I was the VP of Channel Marketing at Sallie Mae and You Promise. And joining me today is Nate Gilbert. He's an admissions counselor at the University of Louisville in Louisville, Kentucky, and he oversees virtual recruitment efforts for the University of Louisville. So let's get started. Why do we really need new ways to engage with students? Well, there have been some tectonic changes in the world of recruiting for students. And I'd like to just kind of contrast the not so distant past with what's currently happening in recruiting. So in the past, as all of you are very well aware, recruiting relied heavily on in-person student engagement via college fairs and high school visits. But now what we know is that students are more interested and actually prefer to engage online rather than those face-to-face visits. And I would say, to go even one step further than having them just prefer it, they actually expect to be able to engage with colleges in a virtual way. Secondly, we know that historically schools were able to rely on a more local approach to recruiting. But now, given expanded competition and just the geographic trends within the United States, schools are having to expand their focus not just outside of their local region or state, but indeed outside of the United States to be able to meet their recruiting challenges. And in my role, I talk to a lot of folks in enrollment marketing, and I haven't heard many who have told me that budgets are continuing to grow. So schools are being asked to do more with less, hit higher goals, and certainly not getting the additional resources required to really be able to match those to meet those goals. And then the next piece is that the world is becoming more diverse, right? We know that the U.S. Demographic changes is really presenting a very different type of student on campus, and that there are lots of different types of students on campus. And we know that student diversity is at the forefront like never before, and reaching the right students with the right message has greatly increased as a result of this. And finally, we know that just the number of students, the number of applications that students are applying to has changed dramatically. So historically, students applied to less than 5 schools. Now we're seeing that they're applying on average to 10 to 12 schools. So really, all of this comes together to say, you know what, we really need some 21st century solutions to help address these new challenges. So let's look at the first challenge. So the first challenge is expanding reach, and universities really need a way to expand their recruiting efforts. No longer can reps afford to travel to meet students in every corner of the globe. And even the most well-funded universities only reach a fraction of high schools in person. Of particular concern, we know that 45% of international students have little or no opportunity to visit campus, and that's actually from some research that we did last year with international students where we partnered with Noel Levitz. And in addition, universities face barriers to reaching key influencers such as parents and school counselors. So in order to meet these enrollment goals, colleges need meaningful ways to reach these parties throughout the enrollment cycle. So what are some solutions? So solution would be to add online recruiting capabilities that students are now familiar and comfortable with, and then leverage partners to help extend your reach online. So some practical advice to enrollment marketers on the line here. Take a close look and inventory existing relationships that you have and determine how those relationships and those partnerships might help you reach new students and new geographies. We've thrown some examples here on the slide of some of the relationships that I use as a marketer at College Week Live to help us reach various niche groups of students all across the globe. So for example, we partner with TOEFL to do content presentations within our environment, and that's a way of allowing us to bring a niche group of students, namely international students, to an online environment to help expand our reach of prospective students coming to our environment. And then think about how you might team up with these partners to host online events, online student access events, whether that be webinars or chat sessions or online fairs. And think about, as you think about this reach, think about how do you give access to students, families, counselors, and other key stakeholders the opportunity to communicate with you via chat, video, and other online channels, because that's going to help you improve accessibility for students who aren't able to attend your more traditional or in-person events, and really give you that reach that you need to meet your recruitment goals. So let's look at an example here. We have an example of Mount St. Mary's, and their challenge was really about how do I access out-of-state students in a cost-effective way, and then how do I connect with students and parents at critical college decision points throughout the process. So what their solution was to think about efforts to efficiently expand outreach and engage with students throughout all points of the admissions process. So how did they do that? They actually had current college students host weekly chat sessions as a way to engage with out-of-state prospective students and their parents. So using students who were working within the admissions department, potentially as a student ambassador, and using those students as a way of expanding reach by keeping those chats going every week with these prospective students and parents. And then they leveraged custom online marketing materials that were timed to each critical point within the admissions process, from the initial application all the way through yield. And they had some pretty outstanding results. They were able to expand reach to 50 states and 115 countries, and they enrolled 28% of the students they met online through College Week Live, and lowered the number of stealth applicants. So it gave them a way also of pulling out hand raisers and getting stealth applicants to engage with them in a way that made them easier to track throughout the funnel and thus engage. The next challenge, challenge number 2, how do you engage with prospective students throughout the admissions life cycle? And look, this is a huge challenge because admissions departments have a finite number of people that are out working in the field, and that means there's a finite number of students that they can reach at any particular recruiting event. And even potentially more critically, they often lack compelling ways to engage with those students beyond inviting them to campus. So if inviting someone to campus is your call to action, you're missing a huge opportunity to really engage with those who can't, for whatever practical reasons, can't make it to your campus. So the challenge is really around, and I think the challenge as a marketer, an enrollment marketer, is to say, look through your communication funnel and your process and say, do I have gaps in this process, and is there an opportunity for me to build a relationship using different techniques throughout this enrollment funnel? And I would really challenge you to look at your communication plan to identify those holes and find the ways where you could connect with students using those same communication channels that they prefer. And I think the good news is students today do prefer and will engage with you in a wide range of technology. We know that through some research we've done also with Noah Levitz that 75% of students are interested in reaching schools via webcasts, and 69% said that they would communicate via live chat sessions. So that's one great scalable, low-cost technology solution. And we also know that that you can use virtual environments as a way of augmenting the physical travel that you're doing. So even if you are going out and doing some great travel, some great visiting to high schools that are your feeder programs, there's an opportunity to augment that travel using virtual technologies. So think about how can you gain more traction within your in-person high school visits by giving students opportunities to connect with you through live online communications, maybe before and after your travel. And we've seen some really interesting examples of clients who use College Week Live as a way of augmenting their physical travel. So, for example, maybe they have an admissions rep who's in China doing admissions visits, and what they'll do is they may have an online visit before they go and an online visit after they go to really cement that relationship with that prospective student and indeed the family. And then think about admissions. How do they use this technology to identify the best students before they visit a campus or attend an open house? So how can you use technology to target the right types of students as a way of really sharpening your focus on the best fit students for your campus? And then the last piece around this particular solution is, think about how you might use technology to attract students that have very specific, unique concerns, and how do you engage with them? Let me give you some examples. When I often sit after we have events and I look through some of the chat information and I see what students are asking about, you start to see that students have very specific concerns that are relevant as they go through the admissions funnel. So for example, a student is maybe considering applying to your institution. Maybe they have concerns that are pertaining to financial aid down the road, but they don't necessarily want to express those concerns in a face-to-face environment. It's hard to step forward and say, maybe I have some financial hardships. I don't know if I can apply to this school. What we see in the virtual world is there's a level of intimacy and a level of protection that a student feels when they can ask a question one-on-one with someone within your admissions department. So some strategies or some ideas that I would like to convey as you think about how do I achieve engagement throughout the funnel. I've got limited folks on my team and limited resources. I would challenge you to think about inviting prospective and accepted students to more intimate live chat and video sessions where you can stay connected while they're at key decision points of the admissions process. And then think about how you foster positive relationships with students and their families by inviting them to specialized presentations that will help them navigate the complexities of college admissions. So as you think about that funnel and you think about sophomores and juniors entering your funnel at the very top, how do you provide customized programming that helps prospective students really start to build a brand affinity for your institution. And then I would also encourage you to use tablet and smartphone accessible means to engage prospective students. We know they have access to this technology, and we know that they like to engage in this manner. So now let's look at a case study. So University of San Diego, let's look at what they've done to really improve diversity and yield. So the first one was they were really challenged with increasing the diversity of their freshman class and improving yield among their accepted students. So the solution, we at College Week Live worked with University of San Diego to help enroll more diverse students by directing prospective students to meet them online after in-person visits. So it was a way of augmenting physical travel. And then the second way was to use CWL, College Week Live video chats, to address international students and parent concerns specifically. And I think especially in the area of international students, there is a tremendous opportunity to stay tight with your prospective international students and parents throughout the admissions process. We know that they have a lot of unique concerns throughout the funnel, and thinking about how do you stay engaged with them throughout the process as their concerns shift throughout as they're considering enrolling in your institution. And when you look at University of San Diego, they were able to increase reach to 50 states and 90 countries, really improving accessibility, and they were able to attract 3x more students to online events versus campus visits. And it's not to say that you want to get rid of campus visits. I think what you want to say is, what you want to look at is, how do you use online events to capture a bigger attention, a bigger group of students into your net during the yield process. And then really improved student accessibility and yield, and that in particular was on the international side. Next, the next challenge, challenge number 3, delivering the right message to the right students. And this is really important. And you know, as we know, to really be more effective, universities need to find a way to tailor their message to specific target audiences. And especially as you are recruiting outside of your region and outside of your traditional student set, you need to be able to customize that message to really be relevant. And so a couple of examples here, as you think about competing for elite students, you know, how do you engage that audience with the right message? And I talked about earlier about students with special concerns. We see an awful lot of students coming to our programming with questions around English is my second language. What are the policies? You know, how do you think about that? Undocumented students. We have a huge rise in undocumented students asking questions in the environment in our shows. We have questions that students want to know. What is your campus like if I'm a gay or lesbian student? And then there's a whole host of issues for international students, whether that's around pathway programs or language requirements or safety on campus. So the solution here is to really think about, how do you use customized online programming to reach and engage these niche students? And some examples are to think about how do you immerse these specific types of students in your own branded experience. So think about admissions teams are now using targeted demographics to identify specific students they're looking to recruit. In this way, you can create custom programming to allow students to participate in themed online events to win over those students that are being courted by other top institutions. And the other thing is that participation in these events enables universities to take advantage of valuable personalized content without having to develop it themselves. An example is we do a presentation, we do an event with Univision and have a long-standing partnership with Univision where we bring in Hispanic college access experts to talk about the process with students. Univision promotes the event, and colleges are then there live to be able to answer questions specifically. And so I guess the challenge to you as an enrollment marketer is, how are you addressing the needs of your Hispanic candidates and their families, and are you able to communicate with them in a way that's relevant, and in a way that is, for example, with parents, are you speaking in language? There's lots of opportunities there. So lots of good opportunities really for colleges to think about programming that maybe shows off the type of school, showcases the type of school they are, or the type of student they're looking to attract, or in the third example, really personal types of questions that can only really, that in which this technology really does support that one-on-one conversation. And an example of this, Pepperdine University, we can talk about their case study. Their challenge was really to enable their admissions team to be more efficient and accessible to students. So what they did was they used one-on-one virtual meetings with students to drive in-depth conversations, and then online conversations were typically augmented by live event discussions. So really pulling in this idea of having video presentations which were one-to-many, and then supplementing it by one-on-one conversations through text. They also hosted specialty events to reach first-generation and underrepresented students. The result was that they greatly improved yield. They met 3,000 students through College Week Live Online, and 40% of accepted students they met online enrolled, 43% higher yield rate than average. So really what's that saying? Pepperdine's approach was to be very focused and very targeted with some key audiences that they were looking to reach, and really handhold them throughout the process using one-on-one and one-to-many communications, and they effectively did so. Challenge number 4, really increased competition amongst universities and the increased volume of applications has made it much more difficult to know where to focus yield efforts. And the reality is that not all of your admitted students are going to be able to physically visit campus for a yield event. And we know that the average student applies to 10 to 12 schools versus 5 to 6 schools just a few years ago. So what's the solution? The solution is that I think there's a real opportunity to engage with accepted students online during that yield stage. And I think the challenge is to think about how do you augment your physical online, your physical campus events for admitted students with online counterparts to help you just capture a bigger market share. The graphic on the slide in front of you is an example of an online yield event for accepted students that was conducted by the University of Notre Dame. And you might even think about doing these online events for people who have visited your campus event also, because you really want to remove those final objections that students might have, any last-minute questions that they may have that may be standing between them finally taking your admissions offer. And I think there's also an opportunity using virtual to do some micro-targeted yield campaigns. So think about if you've got a particular group of students coming from international areas, you might want to do a yield event specific for that audience. I'll give you an example. Notre Dame did a yield event for admitted students in Hong Kong. And what they did was they had a physical event in Hong Kong where they had students and parents get together with their rep from that area, and then they had a virtual version, and they accessed the virtual team of students who was on campus, and it was actually all current students from Hong Kong, and it allowed them to have a virtual yield event that combined a physical yield event that was in Hong Kong that was supplemented by a virtual component of students who were able to be on campus in Notre Dame, and they answered questions about what it was like to be on campus in language for prospective students. So really smart and efficient strategy and a way to bring together physical travel with virtual technology. So an example of the yield event, we can talk about Syracuse University. So the challenge for Syracuse was, how do I improve yield among accepted students, and how do we become more strategic about recruiting internationally and transfer students? And so their solution was to host live text chats for students and to connect with the admissions team, transfer office, and student ambassadors as they were going through the college exploration process. So the idea was, hey, let's represent a broader, let's use the broader community at the college and include student ambassadors, international student support folks, and the transfer office to help us yield these students, to help remove any barriers so that Syracuse ultimately becomes the choice that they want to make. And then they also held online yield events for international students who couldn't visit the campus. So Slam Dunk made sense as a way of being able to reach those international students and give them a sense that there indeed was a place for them on campus at Syracuse. The results, they met nearly 4,000 new students online. Those students had a 22% higher acceptance rate and a 30% higher yield rate. The next challenge is around improving recruiting amid budget constraints. So, you know, on-site recruitment is a necessity. I'm not going to make the argument that it's not, but it's not necessarily a scalable model given resource constraints. And so, as many admissions teams report that budget cuts are making it a challenge to reach all the schools they'd like to visit, especially as they have mandates to reach more high schools than ever, universities need to find a way to make recruiting efforts more cost effective. So the solution is really to augment your recruiting visits with online engagement. And there's lots of ways that you can do that. But admissions teams are better able to meet their enrollment goals when they can take advantage of both the in-person and online recruitment. Makes it easier to have meaningful conversations with students throughout the entire admissions funnel, and you can respond to specific student concerns as they go through that funnel. And I think the other piece that's interesting is when you do the campus visits, when you're going and visiting high schools, you're able to show that student a name and a face for your school. So you've got an admissions counselor and they're visiting. But what you really can't do is really show a wide array of folks from your campus. And so I would challenge you to think about, how do you use this virtual world to create an immersive experience with your university? So how do you use video interaction as a way of really demonstrating your university brand? And I'll give you an example. The University of New Haven, for example, invites potential finance majors to online video presentations that simulate a real stock exchange floor, and it helps students really envision the classroom and their cutting-edge technology. That's not possible to do in a physical visit. Likewise, you know, maybe you have a STEM student could be really enticed by a presentation that would be given by an alumnus who's made a significant scientific breakthrough. Or international students, you know, who may feel more welcome once they have a chat online with a current student from their home country. So think about how do you augment in an efficient way and really demonstrate all that your university has to offer. So let's talk about an example here. You see Riverside. They had some significant budget cuts and also needed to work through expanding their international admissions growth. And one of the areas that they chose to focus on cutting was reducing the cost of hosting their in-person campus events. So what they did was they launched multi-channel campaigns using direct mail, social media, and video chat to more effectively reach out and engage with international applicants and their parents, and then used virtual open houses to better accommodate those international prospects who couldn't attend their in-person events. And as a result, they saw a 42% increase in international applications, a 10% higher yield from international students that they met online, and an 87% in open house cost reduction. So really just in this case, I love this case study because to me it's all about taking a step back and looking at channel integration and trying to figure out how do you integrate all of your marketing channels in a way that drives more results at a lower cost. So it's just a fantastic case study. And with that, I want to hand it over to Nate Gilbert of the University of Louisville to walk through their case study and the great work that he's doing there.
Thank you, Aaron. Thanks a lot. As Aaron said, my name is Nate Gilbert. I work here at the University of Louisville in Louisville, Kentucky. And what I'm going to share with you all today is a couple of the practices that we've implemented over the past couple of years that relate to both social media, because that's a huge component in this marketplace today as far as recruiting students goes, but then also virtual or online tools as well. So as far as an overview, to kind of break down our presentation, first I'm going to give you a little bit of context about the environment that we work in, because I think that's relevant. So I'll tell you a little bit about our community and then also our university. Then secondly, I'm going to cover our recruitment philosophy and talk a little bit about that, because how we use these online and social media platforms directly relates to our philosophy on recruitment. And then finally I'll wrap things up with a conclusion. So a little bit about the University of Louisville and the city of Louisville. Louisville itself is a metropolitan community with about 1.2 million residents. It's a really, really neat place. We have a great arts community, great restaurants, a growing economy. We've been ranked recently in a number of top 10 lists for raising a family or college towns, that sort of thing. So we have a great community to sell to our students. A little bit more about the University of Louisville. In total, we've got about 23,000 students. You can see of those, about 12,000 are full-time, and then our on-campus population is about half of what our full-time undergraduate population is. Also, I wanted to include here the geographic demographics of our students and where they come from. So primarily we're serving the state of Kentucky, as you can see there. About 3/4 of our students come from within the Commonwealth. We're starting to see a little bit of a shift in that number. As Aaron talked about earlier, universities are wanting to expand their footprint. We're certainly in that group. And then also wanted to mention some of our strongest academic areas, which are business, engineering, music, sport administration, and health sciences. So we're a research university, so definitely things related to the health science and engineering are some of our strongest areas. All right, moving on to our recruitment philosophy. One of the pictures I have up here up top, that's of our executive director. Her name's Jenny Sawyer. She's absolutely great. She's been here at the university for about 30 years. And we were talking last week about social media and virtual recruitment and how the marketplace, not necessarily the marketplace, but the way students are being recruited is shifting. At that point, she kind of mentioned something that I've always seen her demonstrate in practice, but never lay it out as simply as this. And she said, our recruitment philosophy here is, in order to get students through the door, you need to develop authentic relationships with them, but then also provide great customer service. Going on from there, she went on to say that due to these new online tools, social media, those sorts of things, we really don't have to do as much of that in person as we had to at one point. Also, something else that we acknowledge here at the University of Louisville and try to be proactive in is that students are expecting to be interacted with even when they aren't on campus. And that's a point that Aaron touched on a couple different times earlier, is the world that the students that we're recruiting live in is an instant world. They connect with their friends instantly, so we feel as though it's really important to be present in as many different platforms as possible to interact with students. Also, that final point, I already touched on that a bit. So now I'm going to move on to some of our actual practices using social media. So before I go any further, I just want to say that email is king with us. So we have a great custom email system that really allows us to customize messages from the moment we get a student's prospect information all the way through the time when they enroll. But with that being said, we've also, over the past couple of years, really developed our presence on social media for reasons that I mentioned on the last slide. Some of the specific things that we've used social media for is of course, regular and relevant office updates. Okay, typically email takes care of all the formal stuff, but social media gives us an opportunity to push that information out again, continue to build relationships with students, and then also provide customer service. In many cases, students are more active on social media than they are on their email, which if we could have that the other way, we would, because the email is much easier for us. But we recognize that it's important to push out the same information on social media too. Also, we use Twitter and Facebook to humanize our staff as well. Earlier, Aaron talked about the importance of being able to put a name with a face, and I believe it was with the Hong Kong example, they were able to do a kind of a multi-leveled event with students back on campus, and then also in person there in Hong Kong. And with us, we utilize the online media as a way to essentially get FaceTime with students. So it looks like the picture down there on the bottom left, that's a screenshot that I took from our Facebook of just the staff in our office. So a couple times a month, if it's a spirit day or there's something big happening on campus, we'll do a quick 15-second video update or something along those lines. Also, something that social media allows us to do is to document and share recruitment events. So even if we're out in a community, every student that we have prospect information for, or that we would like to come to that event, they can't necessarily come. So we use that as an opportunity, as you can see at the bottom right there, to take pictures of students, do things on Instagram, and send those out into social media land, and use that as an opportunity to interact with students and develop relationships. I don't think I mentioned it, but between our Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, we have more than 7,000 followers and likes. So that's really been a big point of emphasis for us. Another way that we've used Twitter is for freshman orientation. I know for us, freshman orientation, although the students that come to orientation yield at a very high rate, every single student that comes through doesn't necessarily end up enrolling. So something that we implemented a couple summers ago was we use a hashtag for orientation, and we encourage students to use that hashtag to tweet about orientation throughout. What this has done is it allows us to search that hashtag or search that keyword and find out what people are saying about orientation. It allows us to interact with them if they're having a positive experience, and it also allows us to provide great customer service if they're also having a negative experience. We also do something similar pretty regularly with just the University of Louisville overall, where we actually go out onto Twitter and search U of L admissions, University of Louisville, to see what people are saying, and use that as an opportunity to be proactive with folks and start interactions without them coming to us first. Okay, so another platform that we've developed over the past couple years has been a blog. We still have some work to do on this, and it's been growing slowly, but last semester we had there's either 6 or 7 bloggers. This semester we have 4, and what we found is that, and I'm sure you all are the same way, your best sales reps typically are your students, your current students' experiences. They're able to connect with your prospective students, and we really didn't have an online medium that was regularly accessible for prospective students. So really there's no directive for our bloggers. We send them a couple ideas at the beginning of each semester for maybe for some ideas if they're struggling, but largely they just write about their experiences a couple times a week, a couple times a month. Typically our bloggers usually right on their own schedule, but we found it to be a very, very useful tool and something that we've been able to use in our email communication as well, especially with freshman orientation. For students that are coming to say the next orientation session, we're able to email the blog from the previous orientation session to those students in their reminder email for them to get a chance to read and see what they're getting into before they arrive to campus. Our blog at its peak, we saw, I want to say it was about 2,600 visitors per week, and of course that number fluctuates depending upon the time of year and the content that we're pushing out. But our blog is something that we're looking to integrate more over the coming months and years. A couple other online platforms that we use to help recruit students and to continue to build relationships and provide customer service. One of those is our YouTube channel. So we have a staff at our university whose sole responsibility is to go out and find great things that are happening on campus and create videos about those. So whether it's research or Fulbright scholars or our men's basketball team or these staff members also made a video of our cheerleading squad. We were featured on Glee, music recitals and rehearsals, really just about anything that they can come across, they do a story about. So we're then able to push this information out through Facebook and Twitter, once again to help us engage and interact with our prospective students, and also to provide a service to our community as well. There at the bottom of this page, you'll see my email signature, and this is something that we implemented I think it was last month, so it's still relatively new to us, but we also see this as a really easy and potentially very effective way to drive traffic to these online platforms where students can interact and maybe connect in a way that they wouldn't have been able to otherwise. I recommend doing that if your school does have social media platforms, that you find a way to get those included in your email signature. It's just too easy not to do. Moving on from there, I'm going to talk a little bit now about College Week Live. Now, we've had our partnership and contract with College Week Live. I've been here for 3 years now, and we've had it ever since I've gotten here. And as Aaron already talked about, there are a lot of really unique things that College Week Live is able to do, and we found that to be the case in our personal uses as well. We're currently looking to expand our recruitment or travel territories, and the bottom line is that travel is expensive, not just from a financial point of view, but from a staff morale point of view, a time point of view, and you can't always guarantee that a visit, whether it's an hour away or 3 hours away or 6 hours away, is going to be a productive use of time for your recruiters. So we use College Week Live to test the waters and connect with schools in different states or different areas to host online events before we go in head first and make an in-person visit to those areas. Also, she mentioned we've used College Week Live to follow up with in-person events or college fairs or those types of things as well in certain areas. One way that we've really used College Week Live is for special population video topics. So I have a number of those written down, but we've been able to do video topics related to specific yield efforts. So questions commonly come up about financial aid, about housing, about scholarships. What type of format should I write my resume in? Well, what we've done is we've actually hosted videos on all of the topics that I've just mentioned, and we're able to use our prospects or students who have sent us test scores to identify them, or maybe it's geographically, or if they've sent us their FAFSA information, if we want to do a financial aid related video, and host an event online and then send these emails out to students to get them to come back and visit with us to learn some more about our university. Something else that we found really valuable with College Week Live is after you do a webcast, similarly to what we're doing right now, it's in the same format, is that video is archived on your university's page. So we're then able to essentially embed that video in future emails as well, and we found that to be very useful. Also, I guess the final point as far as College Week Live goes is they send us regular reports. If we do a special event, we usually get one about a week later, and then we also get monthly reports that has students' information that came into our booth. So their high school, where they're from, their email address, and that allows us to generate new prospects. I believe so far this year we've generated about 4,500 unique prospects from College Week Live alone. But then also we go a step further aside from getting them into our regular email communication, and we actually have the admissions counselors in our office reach out to those students individually via email and just say, hey, my name's Nate. I work with, thanks for stopping by our College Week Live booth or coming to this online event. I work with students from your area and also in your high school. So if you ever have any questions, or if you do have questions, please be sure to contact me. So it's just another great way to make impressions on students that you wouldn't be able to otherwise. And that last point is just one of many benefits from College Week Live. So in conclusion, and just to kind of wrap things up, because I went through those very quickly for the sake of time, but over the past couple years we've really began to use online platforms and social media to continue to interact and build relationships with students no matter where they might be. So as I already said, these students expect to be interacted with on a regular basis, and we feel as though if we aren't interacting with them in the way that they're most comfortable, which is online, which is on their cell phones, which is on Twitter, that's a disadvantage to us. Another point I wanted to make is that aside from our regular communication team and the meetings that they have about CommFlow and those sorts of things, we also have a small committee that meets regularly to discuss and plan different ways to interact with students on social media. And we have an office social media person who does great with it, but we found that bringing a couple other players to the table really does wonders for getting some creative juices flowing. I guess finally my take-home point is, aside from the value of being present in the environments where these students interact, so on Twitter, on Facebook, on the internet, the bottom line is that these online technologies, many of them, especially with the social media, are free or come at a very small cost, or products like College Week Live, and there's a handful of others out there, although there's a cost associated with them. The flexibility that they offer it's unparalleled. Also in regards to budget restraints, I know that we're all working under. We certainly are have tight budgets here at the University of Louisville. Really allows us to get creative and figure out different ways to interact with students in a more cost-efficient manner. With that being said, that's all that I've got for you all today. I'm going to go over to one more slide and show you all my contact information. My email is listed there, my direct office line as well. If you'll have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to me. Also, if you would like to, you can follow us on Twitter. That's listed there, our Facebook, and then our Instagram as well. So what I'm going to do now is, I guess we're going to start the Q&A. Aaron, if you want to take the video back over and some of your all's great questions.
Great. So, first question, and we've had a couple that are basically this flavor, which is, do you have any information about what time of day the chat sessions took place? And there's another question that's similar, which is, what time is ideal for international students?
So as far as she was talking about what time of day these online chatting or these interactions take place. I can speak directly from our point of view with College Week Live. Okay. We usually try and do our chatting events in the evening. Typically we find that students, especially college-bound students, they either work part-time after school, or they're involved with a sport after school, or they babysit or they volunteer, those types of things. So we found usually the 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern time is a good good period of time for us to chat. Have you, Aaron, have you all found,
Yeah.
do you have
what I would say?
any data, I guess?
Yeah, what I would say is it's really important to think about chatting at a time that's convenient to the students that you're trying to reach. So as you think about recruiting efforts and when you want to do your chats, I would urge you to consider the audience that you're trying to reach, not necessarily at a time that's convenient for your office. So, for example, we often start our international events at 5 a.m. East Coast time, and that's because that's a time that really works for our Chinese population, and we know we have a lot of students in China who are very eager to chat. And I will tell you, we work with the University of Melbourne, and they often chat all night East Coast time, and that's because they are looking to use the technology to recruit within Asia. And in order to do that, they really need to be hosting these sessions all night. So I would say that you really want to take a step back, think about who you're trying to recruit, and then plan your chat times based on what time is going to make the most sense for that particular audience, and that's really to me the most important part. I would say, if you're looking to reach, to echo Nate's thoughts, to for an East Coast school, if you want to reach students after school is the best time. 6 to 10 makes complete sense, because that's when you can get students and parents, and they're more likely to be home. And I would follow that across the U.S. So if you're a West Coast school and you want to reach students, I would say 6 to 10 Pacific time. So let me find some more questions here. So there's a question around, does the percentage of students interested in reaching schools via webcasts and live chat sessions apply to non-traditional students or traditional students only? And I would say we have examples, while most of the cases that we cited here were for traditional students, we have cases of other clients that we work with that are looking for non-traditional students, where the technology does also work. And we do some work with Northeastern's continuing professional studies program, and they use the technology, and they're looking to recruit locally within the Boston area. But the way they use it is actually as a way to connect with with folks who have busy lives, who are likely have jobs all day, and who need efficient ways to communicate. We also work with Miami-Dade, which also recruits to a wide range of students, many of which are non-traditional, and they are able to use the technology to effectively meet the needs of that population. And I'm happy to send a case study if the person who asked that question wants to send me an email. It's ewarren@collegeweeklive.com. I'm happy to send you a case study that really speaks to the Miami-Dade example.
Yeah, can I add something else to that, Aaron, that you just went over?
Sure.
A specific example that we're using over the next couple, actually it's next Wednesday, we're doing a specific event, not we, but this entire state of Kentucky, focused around transfer students. So this is a non-traditional population as well. But it's an event that we're doing in tandem with our state community college system, where they're going to have every community college system in the state on the same day, same times, are going to be online, and marketing has been sent out for this, and then also all of the four-year public and private institutions are on board too, to give students an opportunity to ask questions about transferring. So that's one that I thought was relevant that I wanted to share, Aaron.
Yeah, absolutely. And we actually had another question where someone was asking, have you seen this effort effective with community college populations? And I think you just gave a great example of how you can use the technology to recruit community college students. And I've actually seen, we have many clients who are community colleges who are also using the technology as a way to reach out to prospective students. In particular, we're seeing a lot of international students who are looking to come to study in the U.S. in a community college setting as a way of ensuring they have the right language requirements to then transfer into a four-year school. So I actually think a community college
can really effectively use this technology. We had another question about, do you use your technology to work with veterans and military who are nearing or preparing to leave the military? And interestingly, we do have relationships with some of the bases around the United States and we communicate with them similarly to the way that we do with high schools, and they are able to use the technology to help veterans as they're starting to think through transition. And many times this technology actually works quite well with them because they follow non-traditional hours and have very non-traditional stories and require more hand-holding throughout the process. So I think this technology is actually an ideal fit for that particular audience. Nate, there was a question about, they asked if you could speak to the cooperation of faculty to use technology and speak to prospective students.
Sure, yeah, that's a very good question. We're actually in the process of planning a couple of webcasts that are related to that question, and the way that we've done that is through, I'm sure you all have student workers in your office, and you're able to over the period of a year or a couple of years get a feel for what some of the favorite professors are. I'm sure your university has a top 10 professors at the university competition that they do, or an award that they give, and those are some of the ways we've identified some professors to ask to allow us to do a live webcast of a lecture, and that's something that we're working on planning right now. Also, we're working on a couple other web events, one with our Parents Association. So the director of our Parents Association, his name's Glenn. Glenn's going to be doing a presentation that we're going to market and target towards parents of seniors and use that as a yield tool. And then also we're doing one with our Alumni Association and one of the associate directors over there to bring in some young alums from the greater Louisville area who are now working to talk about what they're now doing. And what we found is if you make the ask, this I can only speak from my experience here at U of L, generally we found that faculty and staff have been more than willing to assist us. And the great thing with this type of technology is it's not like you have to program an entire event. It's very easy. It's very it's very simple. They sit in front of a computer screen, maybe do a Q&A or have a panel of students, and it's just really easy to facilitate.
Hey Nate, next question is actually, we've got a couple for you, so just keep the video. So someone is looking to know, what email system do you use, and do you have a CRM that you're working with?
That is a very good question. The specific email system that we use, it's slipping my mind right now. I don't work directly with our email communication, so unfortunately I can't answer that. If you want to email me, I'd be happy to look into that for you and check with our assistant director of communication. So unfortunately I can't answer that one, Aaron. I'm sorry. Let's see here. There are a couple other questions from a few different
next
folks
question.
that I
Does
saw
your admissions office
that I wanted
maintain
to
the
bring up,
institution's social
asking,
media sites, or do you have a
as far as our
specific
Facebook
page?
and Twitter accounts go?
Yeah.
And the answer to that is our office. We have our own Facebook account that we manage, and then also our own Twitter. With that being said, there is a general, or I guess like a parent or master University of Louisville Twitter account, and there's a university-wide digital media person, and part of his responsibility is to check on all the different social media pages and then broadcast anything that's worthwhile over the general U of L Twitter. But we're very fortunate. I know there are some schools whose I guess the reins are a little bit tighter as far as social media goes, but we're very, very lucky to have a lot of flexibility. And in general, we're able to do contests and social media events, and really say anything, any time of the week, anytime, any day that we want to. So, so we're very lucky there.
Okay, and with that, I want to thank you. It's now 4 o'clock. I want to thank you for joining us. We will send out the slides as well as a link to today's presentation. And if you have any questions, please do feel free to email Nate. His contact information is in the presentation, and my email is ewarren@collegeweeklive.com. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye.